And ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to some more Proving Grounds action right here on the LCS. I did again, I'm Ravage on here. Our main man, Rebel Fox. Dean, we just witnessed game one between GGA and C9A. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, clear game plan from GGA. They say, okay, we're going to play for earlier stage, we're going to play for Rift Herald, we're going to play for Tower Gold, and what would you know, they're able to make it happen. C9, they fall bait a couple of times to this, but again, GGA, they've come into this identity of wanting to play around top side to begin with, transitioning into a bottom side play. Their team fighting is still, I think, a little bit better, but this is a style that we've seen them kind of adapt to, and it's actually really impressive just how finely they've been able to sharpen this sword as a weapon to be able to use into a bunch of these compositions. Is this like kind of a, yeah, you know, not scaling necessarily, more of like this mid-game composition where you can attack with Prismal on this Ziggs.
And Prismal too, though, was like essentially as you got towards that mid game, right? Although he wasn't exactly the over late game carry that we expected him to be, considering we really go to late game, Dean, because GGA made sure that at every opportunity they got at C9 on both ends too, is that if there was an opportunity mid lane, if everybody's a little bit too far forward, it was time to go in, and not a second could be wasted in between these two. And although C9 definitely had the favorable skirmishes, we see by the end of it, GGA definitely came out on top, albeit within 30 minutes still, but slow, methodical, and controlled play.
I mean, if you really wanted to still down the essence of what happened inside of this game, you could just make the argument that, like, there was no response to Ziggs, like, at all. If you were not able to hit him with, like, Moonlight Vigil / if you were able to one-shot him with, like, a Nocturne ultimating, he just gets to freely throw bombs. How many of these fights do you actually get to see that, where it's like, okay, does Prismal die? No. Then everybody dies to Prismal. This is the problem again and again. You see that in this fight, because they attempt to make something happen, Prismal cannot. Darshan is able to get close out of this one. They almost are able to find Prismal kind of on the second portion, which is what copies for. But again, this amazing Zonia stops it. But in fight after fight after fight, if Prismal is living and nobody's there to, like, especially not Nocturne, if Nocturne's not able to one shot, there is just nothing to be accomplished from the side of C9 Academy. And this was kind of the end, the nail in the coffin here. The attempted dive into the likes of the Ziggs. Again, no Prismal death means that the entire team has to back away.
Yeah, and considering just, from here to, like, GGA were able to control the pace of the game. After that fight, they took whatever towers they want, they took whatever dragons they wanted to, and with all that they pushed up consistently, Nas being very strong, and Rosethorn having those beautiful, beautiful pillars we were talking about before here, Dean, right? Everything was set up for them, but there was a single point that I was trying to raise before here too, and that was about GGA's identity and how that's been able to form throughout this entire season.
Yeah, when they started off, they had two new players, again, from their previous split when they had, like, they had Tally and they had Chime. They then moved Newbie into this roster, and they moved Niles, both of them down from their LCS roster, and things weren't kind of as coordinated as what you're seeing now. And so over the course of the split, they had a chance to kind of refine that, really decide what it is that they wanted to do, and I really love the place that they finally landed.
Exactly, and in fact, I did get a chance to talk to both Niles and Newbie a little bit ago, right before the start of UEA, in fact, which is turned before this one, on how they view themselves as a team. And talking to them and both their coach too, it's like there was one big thing on their mind, which was improvement and consistency, and that really just like centered around like making sure that they're not so coin flipping on some of their plays. They're all on the same page when they go in for certain plays, and like they're making sure that they're playing through one directed style, which we mentioned before, and they're succeeding through it as well. Niles, who talked about his role, being able to absorb a lot of that early pressure, and considering what they're able to give him, he knows he wants a team fight, and he knows he's good at it. He's yet again being Niles, also not afraid of any top laner in the academy. So he says nobody's on his radar, which, hey man, respects to you, bro, but I would be scared of a couple of them. And for Newbie as well, right, talking about his role in terms of him as a support, right, the way he's been able to blossom overall, as like, especially with him coming in like decently newer than through with the entire team, he's done fantastically. And then he mentions like how like he's become a real voice in terms of setups just as a support. So it's been really fantastic to see, just how well they've all adapted together and how well they're doing right now, Dean.
Yeah, especially because now they are one game out from expanding on what had happened in the previous split. Because of course, Golden Guardians they placed in the 7th and 8th spot in the previous proving grounds. Winning this game or winning the next game now puts them into 6th. They are continuing to build over time. I remember their coach had mentioned something about how this is not supposed to be a day one roster that's going to be able to beat every single person. This is all about being able to develop, like you had said, figuring out this style, making sure that these players are getting more consistent, and it seems to be working for the side of GGA because they do look better game by game by game, series by series over the course of the entire split. Hence the proving grounds buff, which we have now decreed to them. C9, they honestly, I think, surprised a bit inside of Academy playoffs. They had to go through first a reverse sweep against EG, and then they went into that best of 5 against FlyQuest, ended up taking both of those series to go on to the finals, into that best of 5 against Team Liquid. Prior to that, I don't know that there were a bunch of people that would have been like, hey, they're going to make it to finals, only because like the expectation wasn't there. Their split wasn't the cleanest of all time. So while their performance definitely admirable, their number 2 seed came in contested immediately after losing to Resolve, of course, in that one. So this feels like now, C9 has to come back in some specific way to be able to have more closure in this split than you would want. You don't want to finish 7th to 8th after being the second best Academy team. You want to do much better. I think the key to that here is Schernfire. Schernfire, when he's able to control pacing inside of a game, things look so good for C9. Things look just amazingly for C9. And in this one, when you're playing the Nocturne, you're already on the back foot trying to control a game like this. Combine that with how well Rosethorn played inside of the earliest stages. Combine that with like the tower presence that's going to come out. Schernfire kind of had a very, very uphill battle trying to do such a thing in this one.
Yeah, considering too, like you mentioned before, they need to get him off the early game. Like him, along with the Fiora, needed to be able to have some early prowess to make sure that GGA were not able to execute the overall game plans. Because if Darshan is an actual side lane threat, if Niles isn't able to roam as well, and if we see the Schernfire can go across the entire map, match the TF, and still bring out that fighting prowess to make sure that they match those globals. And suddenly, GGA in this game looks very, very different, but they executed very, very well. But I imagine going to this one too, C9A has a much better read on what they might want to do. And we'll see what they might want to do going into Champ Select. And we'll come back to you on that in a minute and 40 seconds exactly. Y'all don't move. I'm going to be watching y'all. See you back in a bit. And there we are back in onto Champ Select for game number 2 between GGA and C9A. Similar brands to start off too. They were really taken away by GGA. I imagine like C9A might actually differentiate the strategy a little bit to the heavy support, additions we saw on their first year's ban list. But so far, they're taking the time with it. I still imagine we should see the Threshers touch. But no, it's the Ziggs this time. You were right, Pete. Okay.
Yeah. See, I wanted to see that in game number 1 because again, King doesn't play it too often. It's not that he doesn't play it; it's just that it's not really too much of a King champion. But Prismal has played it all the time. So like, I was like, okay, this seems like a clear cut, easy ban to take away from the side of GGA. And so they do, which is a really good adaptation already. So that means that GGA cannot default to the same composition they had just gone to, unless they have the Caitlyn in the back pocket. But seeing as Prismal's name is not Arrow, who is the only person who's played that in NA all season, actually the entirety of the season, not just this split, but literally all of NA through spring and summer has only been Arrow. I doubt that they're going to be able to kind of operate on that same dynamic. And especially with Tristana gone, they can't run that either. So here, not wanting any aggression to come into bottom lane, I wonder if Ezreal is on the table here for Prismal. Or if they're going to go for something like Varus, because that's obviously available for both these ADCs as well.
Consider Varus actually wasn't banned out in the previous game either, too, as, yep, there we go, GGA decides to take it away. Consider they are still on blue side. There's the first pick. Definitely up for them. We'll see if C9 wants to deny them the TF or leave it up here yet again. Because GGA, did do quite well with that, too, especially going into those early dives up on the top side. That worked out fantastically, but instead it'll be a lot more focus onto the side of the ADCs. And GGA, this would be a very, very strong pick, but right away too, just kind of showing early on that you want to give Niles these resources. But no, I imagine that they'll stick with the TF.
Yep. It's a combination of both. Number one, you don't want to give away that like Jace is coming, just because you have the ability to counterpick that with Darshan, and he's got a champion pool that's humongous. So like, I don't even want to talk about what he could possibly bring out into Jace after his years of experience. But again, you also do not want Copy getting anything that he can really impact the map with very quickly. Twisted Fate being just like the optimal choice of that, even from his time back on 100 Thieves Next. That was the champion of choice when he wanted to get out and about on the map. So not wanting that one instead, they're going to go back to the Rise. It did fantastic in the previous game. He played it pretty well in a number of situations. I don't think there's anything wrong with that pick. I'm perfectly comfortable with that. This is the point where now C9, I think, have to start adapting their draft.
Yeah, and considering how the lane phase went for Copy as well too, I imagine he should be perfectly fine going into the next, considering how strong he got. But throughout this game, though, with GGA, this time too, they spoke a little bit more about their bot side, but considering that Ziggs is gone, and the jungle pick might potentially be next to respond, as the Thresh was banned out last game by C9, but left up this time, so a nice power pick for Isles, right? At least this time they have a bit more providing power and a lot more lockdown too, and just Thresh is just so good at everything he does.
Yeah, and with the champions that are still available, again, like Varus would have been one, but without like Varus or Aphelios, it's actually interesting that Thresh popped up this quickly, just out of like, what are you going to pair with it that still is that same kind of ADC where like you don't have that much positioning, but you have the ability to team fight really effectively. Now you see Brute and Newbie go to the Braum, which is quite curious to me, just because now like there is some interaction with Braum between Thresh in that laning phase. And it also means you can pick something very aggressive on bottom side and go for more like play towards Prismal Newbie at the beginning of the game rather than the end of the game, so they can go for more scaling of the likes of Niles if they want to play him weak side on like his gangplank or something like that.
I mean, this could definitely be an option, but considering with the Braum we see so far, right, it's like with this much more defensive side of support, I would be interested to see what C9's composition is, because, hear me out here, Dean, I imagine they could also potentially bring out the Jinx if they wanted to put the game plan to, a little bit more bot side to it, like you mentioning, where the GP pick could definitely be an option, but this is just my assumption for now. And okay, C9A have read it, bro, they're listening to what I'm saying. Come on.
It's time and time again. This is another one of those champions that, like, when it's able to start taking over a team fight, it goes very, very quickly to taking over a team fight. But you have to make sure that it doesn't go down quickly. Because, again, if Jinx gets one kill and you start to get excited, all of a sudden that team fight looks disgusting from the side of C9 Academy. Making sure it's able to punish at the right positioning, making sure you can play more aggressively on the front foot, things that are very, very helpful for the Thresh to try to accomplish with this Jinx. So, not to mention, again, one of those later game scaling carries for the likes of King as well.
But seeing what we have right now, so they're putting a lot of focus clearly onto the bot side too. So depend on what kind of jungle they decide to pick up to see that can match the Trundle. So Jarvan taken off the table along with the Jace and the Camille, so they don't want GGA to have any more of that comfort. Jax is still definitely up if they wanted to play a bit more of the split push style too, and so is GP. It just rests on GGA to see how they want to limit the jungle options. Again, I don't imagine they'll go for the same Nocturne pick they had before. Like they could still go for the Xin Zhao ban, which is still up right now too. But they'll take out the trend. You were talking about this before here, Dean, and now it's gone yet again.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was picked into GP last time we saw it. And so because of that, it's leading me to thinking that, again, Niles is going to be going for his GP. It's exceptionally strong. He is one of the better GPs that we have just inside of the server in general, let alone what we saw with, like, 1K barrels, things like that. And the new Fleet Footwork room seems to work very well. He played it very well just a couple of days ago when he was on stream. Okay, the Graves for Sure and Fire indicates that C9 does want to play a lot more slowly inside of this one, especially with Ryze and Jinx already. I wonder how that bodes for the earlier phase of the gaming. And it also points to me that, like, Darshan definitely does want a counterpick, and I would like to see something that they can play around to begin with. Because, again, like, Ryze, you can capitalize at the root as much as you would like, and you've got, like, Jinx traps with, like, Thresh on the bottom side, but none of these are really carries that you're looking for super heavily to do a bunch of damage. In fact, if you wanted to do Ezreal and Gangplank here, I would be okay with it. This would give them something to attack the map with, at least. Kled is something that, again, been in the back pocket of now since back in his time inside of Collegiate. I wouldn't hate Gangplank, but I would love for them to be able to have an attacking piece, because right now neither team really has one of those.
Yeah, like they need like some sort of resemblance of consistent DPS. But yeah, there we go. They will go for the Nas GP, which like although like isn't that Kled pick, which would have been a lot of fun. What I'm wondering about with GG's competitions all laid out is going to be just where is the go button on both ends to, how do they decide to play out this overall early to mid game? And two is going to be, it's like, where does the damage come from? Is if Nas can't get in, what is going to happen? And okay, I'll let you take this away. This is
what am I supposed to? What are we playing here? Nobody has an engaged button. You've got like Gold Card, Pillar, and like Gangplank ultimate, and then like Braum ultimate, I guess, is like your best engaged tool. And on the other side, you've got like Thresh Hook. Like you've got so little engage here. I think that this composition from C9 is a little bit disastrous. You've got like two mid-range type characters and like the Graves and the Ryze. You've got Jinx to be able to carry through like a team fight if you're able to focus down target by target by target. And again, when you've got something like this Gwen, and she's able to get into a flanking position with a TP or something like that, she's one of the most lethal champions inside of the game. But again, you have no way to press an issue if you're C9. I'm guessing what is happening here is they're going to play very defensively to begin the game, pretty much top to bottom. Focus on just like pulling as much gold as they can, pulling everything, responding to plays as best as possible to pull gold off the map, and giving up map pressure so that they can work their way into a pit. Because if you've got like 3-4 members in front of you sitting inside of a Baron pit, sitting in front of a Dragon pit, it's easier to fight like that than like in the other way where like you can't force out of a pit because you've got no CC tools. So there's at least that to come up with. But again, when you've got like you got Cannon Barrage, that's pretty much unrespondable. Ezreal in general, too much range to deal with for the majority of the carries here on the side of C9. I feel like C9's composition is going to struggle to even just interact with GGA here.
Interaction being the name of the game between these two, so we'll see how these two competitions play out as he load up into the Rift in just 40 seconds. You don't want to miss it. C9A fighting for their lives. As actually I'm being Hey, hi, how you doing? Welcome back yet again. My apologies, we're having a little bit of some technical difficulties, but don't you worry. This has given us a chance to make sure that you look at what is this wondrous composition that we see before our very eyes, and what I want to call anti-interaction, because how do both of these two comps like do this? They don't.
I think that you can just like mute, deafen, go get food, whatever. Because like I could very honestly see there being like 2 kills before the 20-minute mark if we really wanted that to be the case. Yunbi probably has different intentions. Rosethorn probably has different intentions, but like honestly, from the side of C9, if that actually happens and we end up at 2 kills for like 20, 30 minutes of the game, they're going to be happy with something like that. So that is the eventuality, is like C9 is like, okay, we got Ryze for side laning, we got Gwen for side laning, we got powerful ways to interact there, we got this Jinx who can pop off and like has this big rocket range to be able to, you know, drop into GGA. But they are taking a lot of liberties with what it is that they've drafted so far.
And consider what we're already seeing between these two teams here, Dean. It's I'd be interested to kind of understand what GGA's plan is going into this, right? Because they're on the cusp of being able to move on as C9A right now. It's like, if this is the response to, it's like, there must be something more there. Like, there must be something that we're not seeing. Like, what are we not seeing here?
Like I said, I assume C9 is comfortable taking a team fight into the later phases of the game. You think they're calling things like that, and especially with like what scaling they've got, they have that. And again, another thing to at least pay attention to is like GGA, if they're sitting inside of the pit and you're going to engage them inside of the river and that space is kind of cramped, especially if you get C9 in a flanking position, GGA does get squeezed pretty hard between multiple places. And so I feel like when it comes to flat 5-on-5 team fighting, Darshan's positioning is the one thing I'm paying attention to more than anything, because like Gwen on a flank, again, it feels like a brick wall that you have to run into, because you can't do anything to her for the first couple of seconds. That W makes it uninteractive. Niles basically has to throw the cannon barrage on top of the rest of the members, and then they have to make a split-second decision: do we focus to Darshan, or do we go on to the rest of the team? And if it doesn't end up working out, you've wasted Gangplank ultimate, and all of a sudden the fight starts to get a lot less like interesting, start to lose a bunch of kind of ability here for the likes of GGA to win that. So I'm assuming that's what they're banking on, but again, it is a very hard composition to make work.
And speaking of the flex so far, that like you mentioned, like one big factor that'll play into this too is how Darshan enters the fight, and a lot of it too, from my opinion, is gonna vary around the vision, right? Where they're setting up for these fights too. How do both Newbie and Isles, like, are they gonna interact with it within the twos, like based around the overall neutral objectives, and be focusing the time on, like, is because Newbie too, we know it's like considering it's an Ezreal lane, he should have a little bit more time to move first, and Thresh needs to be with this immoral AD carry that is the Jinx, or else there's consistent threat of just them going on to one another. And yeah, that right there's the Ezreal lane, right? It's like you get hooked into, but then you just shift away and you're perfectly fine because Fire can only come do much into this. So it would be interesting to see how, if Isles gets first take, where do you set up the wards, and can Darshan even get into these fights?
Another aspect of this game that at least helps in C9's favor is that with Jinx on bottom side and also with double ranged into Braum melee, which isn't like the craziest because again it's Thresh into Braum, so it's not like you got like an enchanter or something just like bashing down Braum's health bar. But you have control of bottom river relatively effectively. So what that means is Fire should have access to bottom river easily, should be bottom side scuttlecrap for him here. But more importantly, looking to the future, dragon stacking is a legitimate thing that like C9 could try to bank on, right? If they play topside defensive enough with this Gwen and they don't end up getting punished, if the gangplank can't get too overhead, and you're able to get a couple of plays in a bottom side where you pull first 3 Drakes, not only does it help your scaling potential, but also it like if you get to 3 Drakes and all of a sudden they're on 4th Drake or they're on like Soul Point or something, you might force a fight from the side of GGA.
Isles could potentially die here too. Ignite, they don't have that on their hands, but
no.
So far though, he just backs away, and lucky for them, their jungler was nearby.
Oh my goodness. Can I talk about the fact that, like, I was like, okay, where's the Ignite? And it's like, okay, it's not Ignite. This is a Cleanse Ezreal Exhaust Braum. That is a terrified looking This is like what I would expect like you and I to be taking if we were playing in this game, is like exhaust, heal, cleanse, and like exhaust like as much as possible just to try to pull one minion off of the wave. We'll have to burn all 4, but like it is so weird how defensive they've really set up Prismal and Newbie to be inside of this game.
Yeah, and considering like GGA's plan right now, right? Like we were expecting a lot more focus going over to that mid jungle 2v2 between Roaster, Yunbi, and Fire and Copy. Considering Copy how well he did in the previous game, but that right now has been at an overall standstill. And look back at the previous game, we already had like 2-3 kills at this point. So Dean, your overall prediction of things being a little bit slower here, facing up to be A-okay as Yunbi, okay. A little bit of damage put down onto him. We see Rostom's already there. Nice play yet again, but they're going on to him. And there's the flash, so that's very worth.
Okay, I don't know if it's possible to like call for a replay of that situation, but I actually want to take a look back at what happened with Rise, because I think Copy might have done something that could have cost that situation. So if we get a chance to see that, I'll talk about it. Otherwise, I'll just leave Copy be because it was a tough situation. I mean, you're ganking against a Twisted Fate as like a Rise Graves before level 6. Like you're not going to accomplish too much most of the time. And the best part is you do burn the flash. It's lower cooldown because of course the ultimate spell book, but at minimum, you are at least able to burn off the summoners of Yunbi, who now, if he's going to roam, it's got to be with his ultimate. You can't TP back to lane. They're getting aggressive into Isles, and King would try to slam this, and here's Rosethorn as well.
One more auto. They get the concussive blow stack too, but they can't let. There we go. There it is. Now there we go. Odds is definitely just dead. Roam down to along this one side of Yunbi and Copy. Nice pan and barrage 2 onto the Rise as they get a 2-for-1 so far. Trying to get more Darshan. One more. Marmada should be able to do it, but he goes into on the tower. The concussive blows barely wears off, so they can't get the trade back. C9A coming out on top of that with just a hair's length again.
Very, very well played. Both sides using a number of global interactions here. Darshan ends up TPing. Niles doesn't have to because of his ultimate, and I think that's where the ends up coming through here from the side of GGA, which is despite the fact that they end up trading 1-for-1 or 2-for-2, I guess, in this situation across the entirety of the fight. Niles is able to pick up a fair amount to the top lane, probably 2 turrets, and deny some of that over to the likes of the Gwen. This all started off with like a pick onto Isles, which is fine. I was curious because Rosethorn, for a moment here, had a hang up, and and I think this was Rosethorn going, I don't know if we want to like full commit to this because of like the cross map plays that can come through, and it ended up being the case that this gets traded 2 for 2. The important thing, Jinx gets one, Copy goes down, but then you end up getting one onto, I believe it's Darshan, who's able to pull the other without another response to come through. So at least Darshan does pull some gold to respond to what it was that Niles got on the top side of the map. That is kind of your back foot, and it does open up C9 again to this bottom side dragon. That this dragon stacking could be what it is that ails them for some of the later game setup.
Man, if Rosethorn turns a second earlier, at least they make that a bit more even situation, and even like GGA could have come out on top of that. Because considering looking right now, Dean, although 2v2, like GGA in both the games, like have managed to maintain a steady goal lead, at least 1,000 right now over C9A, and like it's across the board. It's like your top lane farm to like and bot lane a little bit more even though, but like now is yet again consistently continues to be this sort of pressure absorbing point even on the GP. Like the more resources you give him, that being just all this farm and tower plates, he might get scarier. But going for a little bit of a lane gank, he is pushed far enough, but Darshan might have sniffed this out. Skirmishes is also already here. Darshan being this slow, he has the ultimate up, so they could scrap 2v2, but I don't know if they want to.
Yeah, the one beneficial thing about having like the Gwen W is that even a pillar isn't really that effective here, but it does burn that ability so quickly it doesn't matter.
God.
Oh, Rosethorn's able to get on top.
That was so fast. He managed to go down to man Copy too. You saw was going up to the top side trying to get into range, but it's barely not there as well. Really well done, learning a damage between Niles and Rosethorn too. Ian, we're talking about some mid jungle, but this top 2v2 still stays correct.
Putting more and more pressure onto like what is effectively now your very strong side of the map. After that TP play had come through, Darshan lost quite a bit. I thought the kill was at least going to keep him relevant enough in that laning phase, but that gank kind of cements it altogether. And I want to talk again. I'm pretty sure that that pillar was positioned behind and to the right of Darshan to force him up, which kind of reduced the distance Rosethorn had to do to get on top of him inside of that W. The slow didn't mean too much, but it was the positioning of the pillar to be able to force Darshan into Rosethorn that allowed him to auto attack, get the Qs, get the slow from the red buff altogether, which did help secure that kill, kind of slow, speed things up. So Surenfire couldn't try to respond or push them out. Really well played from the GGA duo. Props to Rosethorn, man. His series so far has just been immaculate.
Oh yeah, but just the way he's playing around the entire map too, like figuring out pain points in C9A's composition, and with this Trundle doing so well on it, like it's consistently identifying opportunities here right now for GGA to make sure that they're maintaining their lead. And was gold on Niles as well. He's well on his way to getting his first item, and all that damage on a GP and onto Niles especially is something nobody wants to see, because like we know just how nasty this GP pick can be.
Yeah, it's already nasty enough when you have it on somebody that like he just plays it casually. But again, Niles has been playing it for such a long time at such a high level. He's just incredible at it. It's definitely one of, if not just like outright the best champion that he has inside of his pool at any given time. And he's adapted to the new one a lot faster than I think a bunch of other top laners have, which is what's giving GGA this like super effective pick to have in top lane. They can always kind of default to playing Niles on that pick, where normally it's also like weak side, where all your job is to absorb waves and try not to die. It feels like Niles can just like body check any other top laner on this pick and still come out ahead in terms of a health trade, and always get yourself into an advantageous position where he should have first move. His pushing power is going to be there. His cannon barrage is always going to be able to have map impact, that kind of thing. He feels like he has so much more presence on his GP than anyone else's.
And we talk about this a lot too as well, but I will hold my call as we see they're trying to just deny Rosethorn. We're talking about yet again was because this is that pressure point up against in C9's back. But taking away a couple of chickens won't do a ton to him though. But like you're saying before here, Dean, right? It's like Nas right now continues to be just that pressure absorbing machine, and the early engine, which even on the GP pick is getting GGA towards that mid game.
More importantly, again, your Ezreal and GP scaling is to match.
Get one more. Oh, he gets the trip down. King is super low. There's the exact one. Just one more. Does he live? Giles might die. They're under tower. They're chasing after him. He was the flash too. Yunbi wants it so bad. Has a yellow card. One Murado. Come on.
No.
Does he get this? No.
He tried. He really did.
Oh man. man.
Now does he give the kill to Graves? Oh, he gives it to Graves. Okay, or Graves was able to take that one away. A play on the bottom side. I thought Isle was really gonna save that one. I actually thought Isle was gonna be able to save both of their lives right there with his body blocking, with everything that had come through. But unfortunately, again, Prismal's catching power with this flash, with this E, it's just too difficult to keep him out to be able to snag that one away. And again, on the bottom side of the map, it's an aggressive play from GGA that's responded to by C9. Just to respond with more top-side pressure with Niles by dropping this Rift Herald immediately. It only took 3 members. Yunbi ends up getting traded off for it. They're willing to take that trade in exchange for more gold onto their gangplank. Their scaling members in Ezreal and JP are getting a bunch of this early game gold to use.
I just wanted to be noted that Prismal has only used Flash aggressively. So far this entire series, especially, and also on the Ezreal, I think every single time it's been a go button. Because look at this. So they land the knock-up to it, and Prismal decides, you know what, you're not going to win from me today.
And look at Io, again, he's able to dodge a fair amount of damage, but it's just too much for him to be able to fully block out.
There we go.
Double flash for both of them to be able to find that, and Yunbi commits fully for it. I was hoping King would be able to turn this and just end up turning this into a 1-for-1 at least with the minion aggro, but Surenfire comes in here. Quickly, Yunbi had to make a decision. It's like, okay, do I give this to Graves? Do I give it to Jinx? He could have walked into tower. I guess he decides, like, okay, like if Graves ends up getting me, that's fine. And he's able to give that one over, so there was at least that contemplation maybe going through his head there for a second before the Graves had actually shown up, throwing that ultimate out. But ultimately, again, GGA, they're finding the better of all these plays because their top side is just constantly getting punished off the back of this bottom side plays that have come about from both teams.
And you see it right now too. I want you to pay attention to this vision where it's right up there on the top bush here for Darshan to just giving him a little bit of easy access, and to want to potentially flank in on the pushing Niles, which we know he'll likely have as they drop the second repair to throughout the next 5 minutes of the game. If he doesn't get found out, it could be a really big team fighting tool as you get team fighting. Nice slow. It's a little bit more crit on that too with Surenfire. It's definitely just at depth range, but that's a lot of damage. Rosethorn is here. They lock him down. There we go. Yunbi exacts his revenge as they exhaust enough to copy. How did he land that barrel chain? There's no way, bro.
He's just too good at the gangplank. You see him playing year after year, and there's a reason why. And this is only one item. When we start to see crit plank come through, and you start to see like Essence Reaver, Infinity Edge, all these crit itemizations start to come through with the barrels, like the amount of damage that you can do into multiple targets is just insane. We've barely touched into that so far, as that was Niles just coming into the mid lane, looking for something aggressive, finding Surenfire with the back of the ultimate. Surenfire is farming effectively in this game. I want to give him at least that props, whereas Rosethorn has put a bit more into ganking 1-3 or 1-0-3 on that scoreline, whereas Surenfire, again, putting a bunch more into making sure he is scaling alongside all of these other carries pretty much across the board. But your problem, again, is that level of interaction right there, where it's like, what was the counterplay from Surenfire? Even with Flash, the ultimate had just previously been burnt, so you didn't have that maybe to get away. But still, even with that, I don't know it would have been enough to get yourself out of that situation.
Not a ton he could do right now. Is one thing I just noticed too as well is that before when Yunbi died on the TF, his hat actually flies off in a death animation. So it just shows that, like, as playing with TF, he's never gonna dance again. And King might not either. Disgusting slow. 2-shot barrage with Chunk under 1/4 of his health, but they just can't barely get to him. As all of GGA play on the back end, looking for a nice little flank as Zombie decides to run away instead. Respect.
Yeah, after taking this top tower, Niles basically just has to shove in top wave into Darshan, let him catch wave after wave on top side, and then just walk mid. And that's what he's done 2 times in a row. Now, they've got pressure here. They don't have all the members. They were committing to mid tower. I think they got a split call here.
Yeah, they're already here back and forth. The TP already committed to. Darshan's coming in as well. So make a death drop. It lands a nice little chunk on the Rosethorn, but what more can they get? Niles is all the way at the front. He's going to get chunked down. Has to use a flash over the terrain. One more snip, and snap. Darshan takes him to that sweet escape as he gets the revenge on his fellow top laner.
Oh my goodness, right there. C9 able to punish what was, again, a little bit of split from the side of GGA. Multiple members staying in mid lane to shove the tower. A couple others going in for the blue buff invade, getting a little bit greedy, getting punished by Darshan on that flank TP. Again, getting into the back line as fast as possible. Getting a little more gold, hopefully, into this Gwen's pocket so she can feel a bit more interactive, especially, like you said, with the shutdown onto Niles, making sure that the gangplank gets punished properly for everything that had occurred. The sins of the rest of his team getting punished aptly.
Yeah, just a little bit too far forward on both ends. Like you were saying, it was a little bit of a split call too, but you find just with the TB committed from Darshan, right? They're already so far forward. The GG were in a position that they couldn't back down, trying to out resources from Rosestorm, but they were so alone, they had no vision up there. So feeling a little bit more confident, but I find this is kind of what we saw before, right? In game number 1 as well. There were these kind of slip-ups too, but it doesn't necessarily matter because we're back yet again on neutral objectives. We're back yet again where they're able to get the second Rift Herald too, which if drop topside might give Niles an even and a beautiful pushing lane. But imagine they might use it to drop it mid because look how low it is.
I actually want to take a moment just to point out that like there's a decent experience advantage on the side of C9 Academy before this fight likely breaks out. They've got like a level in jungle, they've got a level in mid lane, they've got a level in bot lane. Like they've got so much experience on a bunch of their carries, and they're tied top lane because again, Niles has been roaming a bit, kind of siphoning off a little bit of experience from the rest of these lanes. He's been about and about as Darshan just kind of caught wave by wave. Feels pretty good for C9 when they're down, 3,000 gold, 2,500 gold, what it is right now, before anything else occurs. They're willing to do this with 2 dragons. They also have this dragon stacking condition that's going to be contested by GGA here and now. This actually might be an okay opening if they can force this fight, especially if Darshan can try to find an angle around and get around back behind this team.
That is hooked down to Rosestorm was looking for that ward as well, just to deny a little bit more vision. As it look going, just back and forth between these two. Darshan might have found his target. Rosestorm goes into the Isaiah Dragon Pit, blocking out all the CC back and forth between these teams, but GGA gonna be on the backside, looking for an engage. Nice hook on the Rosestorm, but trading back and forth. Support for a jungler though. Big pick right now for C9A as he can focus their attention on the dragon. Can they deny? Can Niles do it? The barrel chain barely misses out as Fire confirms that kill.
Yeah, damage isn't quite there to be able to stag away that dragon with the barrel quite yet. Again, the crit flank isn't quite online yet. That's C9, again, understanding their composition is strong. They've got this level advantage. They're not down too much gold, and they've got these 2 dragons, so fighting for this, again, they're able to keep their, as long as their lives are like kind of kept around, if they get a couple of kills off the back end of everything, they're okay trading away anything that's necessary. They walk away with the dragon, and they walk away with a little bit more gold in their pockets. They're comfortable. GGA still has this advantage to kind of play on. So what you're like waiting for now is GGA to be able to deliver like a kill strike in a team fight, but their composition isn't quite scaled to that point. I'll gotta give props. He's able to find this hook onto Rosethorn, ends up trading. King gets excited and forces GGA completely out of the dragon pit, which kind of just like demolishes the fight altogether here.
Between these two, you saw just how Fire at the back end as well. Like it's like with 2 of them actually staying focused on back end. Ooh, that was a nice little pop.
Land. Yeah,
it
props
was
to
barely
Surefire.
out of range.
Like the auto attack turned into the smite was enough to actually bring it down. Good on him to be able to do that calculation that quickly, or be able to know the range of his smite.
And I find too, like this right here was actually a really big fight right now for C9, because if GGA gets this, we're back into the same game state we saw in game number 1, with 2 dragons to 1, where GGA now have the option to take the team fight a little bit more into their favor, and consider they have more towers, but C9A, they now have a set winning condition. You were talking about before here, Dean, right at the beginning. These dragons could definitely become one of the main ways that C9 right now stay relevant in this game and to catch you up in gold as well.
Yeah, that they are. Not to mention their Jinx currently like holds this 40 CS advantage over top of Ezreal, and so this itemization for King is going to be a fair amount more powerful on the likes of this Jinx than it is AIDS, especially inside of team fights where you have multiple targets to actually work it onto. Now you also have bought yourself minimum 15 minutes inside of this game. If you just want to give the next 3 dragons over, you are welcome to do so to the side of C9 if they feel like that is necessary in order to get their composition further on into the game. But of course, the sole point, at least something to pay attention to for the next few minutes, just because again, if C9 are able to trade off a dragon in exchange for like a Baron or something, how are they going to be able to leverage that like little bit of armor, the shielding that they get from the Mountain Soul, into fighting more? Because again, this composition, the problem we had was how do they interact? How do they force their will upon the side of GGA? It feels like outside of that one neutral objective fight, C9 has been playing a bit more call and response, where they've been doing a lot more of the responding.
And the response so far from them has been actually done quite well, especially on the back of, really solid plays from both Isles and along with Darshan. Like Darshan, you were talking about the flanks to come in, but instead he's kind of just been like face front TPing in, middle of the team fight, deciding that, I'm just going to fight right here, right now. And with all his AP damage, with the Rift Maker too, and the healing on his end, there's not a ton that many of the members of GGA can do to actually respond to all the damage that Darshan already has and the pain he can inflict onto them and Isles too, which is mentioning beautiful hooks as well. And considering the setup that he's had between these teams, it's like something to definitely watch out for as we continue throughout this entire game. Dragon is up in another minute and 40 seconds though. But Dean, right now, if we're looking at C9, how do they keep this streak going for themselves?
You put yourself in a kind of disadvantageous situation, not only with draft to start with, but also now with your outer ring of towers down. You are pressed far further into your jungle, so from this point, like, challenging for dragons, challenging for barons becomes even more of an issue, just because now you've got a composition that can use, combination of like Gangplank, Ultimate, Trundle Pillar, Gold Card, the Fissure from the likes of the Braum, multiple ways if they've got vision control in your shallow portions when they see you coming to contest. And so GGA, if they're able to kind of use that type guerrilla warfare of just like surprise tactics to be able to generate an engagement into C9 Academy's like composition, I don't know if they have the ability to respond to it whatsoever because of the amount of CC, the amount of like just zone control in general. We've got the circles, as you like to call them, with like all the different ways in order to like the area to control whatsoever on the side of C9, and so it feels like they have to find a way to be able to shove these waves out and to keep control of their shallow jungle so that that does not happen. They have to be able to fight in open space somehow, and they have to be able to get Jinx to be able to target down one member by one member. Otherwise, like, problems will begin to occur.
And right now, they're both of them are fighting the shallow jungle here. D and GGA looking to get a bit more pressure on the side of C9 jungle as Dragon comes up in just another 15 seconds, but this is the fight already to go back and forth. Sharpfire takes a lot of damage right from the beginning to almost dies, but unfortunately Niles, his ultimate will not have the same impact that it did before, as they're all go their own ways. But that means the Sharpfire has to reset. GGA could just choose to aggress on the Dragon right now and maybe turn in this 4v5.
Yeah, Braum Ultimate, Gangplank Ultimate used right there to burn basically just the flash of Sharpfire as well as the ultimate of Sharpfire. Not anything too impactful, but again, that's going to be at least a cooldown that's not going to be available for the incoming Dragon fight and into the next territory, or at least the setup around the next one, which is going to provide more. Wow, what is C9? They are insane. They're insane! What?
They just go into the pop from a barrel and they die! Why? Nande, Q. That's why in four different languages, because I don't understand, Dean. That's a dragon god. C9. Why?
What was that? You're in vision, in midwave. It's shoved out. The enemy team has your jungler splashdown. They've got priority in the bottom side river, and they're up in gold. And you blind Rise Ultimate into the Dragon Pit? What in the world? What? I've never seen anything like that before in my, like, that's gotta be one of the, it had to be a blunder or something like that, or like maybe they were thinking, okay, if they might not be thinking, they're just using it for like information, they can like try to pull a fast one or something, but that might just be the game.
But game, there's another one. Like, cause I'm just still so confused. Cause, like, you see,
and who's there?
Has the barrel set up, but it's like it's all there. And the pop, although Cryptplank isn't online, it's like he still has a little bit of it. He chunks them down, and now this is back and forth that comes in, right? Like, now there's a ton of damage. Usually with to block a lot of it. And Yumi too with that CC coming in, and with Prismo, free fires the backline.
They just like delivered the 3 squishiest members of C9 directly into a Gangplank. Like I said, that's one of the most disastrous things I've seen. They give up. At least the Dragon isn't that impactful, but the Baron now is just going to be impossible to respond to whatsoever.
Phase rush is broken, so Copy runs away, and as he full charges, by the way, through the cannon barrage and past the Trundle slow. So which I just want to go ahead and point that out, which is absolutely gross. Right now, too, with no real minions on there, and they're looking to see he just bought tower, and Yubi just roaming around the backside. Like, they could just take this as Darshan responds to the first tower top side, but as bot tier 2 for them pretty freely, they could definitely just go for the inhib to C9 right now. If they want to take a little bit of front to back, they might have a small advantage, and getting a fight here would put them back in the game, definitely. But GGA, yet again, back in the power position.
They are. easily able to siege up on these towers now with like this range advantage that already exists with like this Ezreal and the GP in terms of wave control, combined with this Baron buff, just makes it near impossible for a lot of these like mid-low range members on the side of C9 to actually accomplish much. Jinx has to be the majority of this wave clear. King's struggling with a bit of mana right now, which is a problem at least to consider. They might have to back off. Yeah, it makes sense that they're just going to give up this bottom inhibitor.
Oh, Surefire with the slow up against two different terrains. He's not Talon, so he can't run away. Oh, that's so unfortunate with the jungler down. C9A are just like in front of their base with minions coming in and two inhibitors likely down. They have to make a stand here to win some team fight, but GGA, a lot of people might not want this to. Gotta play a little bit more safely. As there we go, air back and forth. Copy, he's just dead. Pop from the barrel. There we go. He gets stuffed. Darshan looking to be the next target too. As Yunbi, there's a lot of damage to the face, so they know it's a fight they might not want to take. But mid and bot inhib gone. A fight in their base. Golden Guardians Academy. Shout out to them.
Yeah, able to capitalize very effectively right there. Not only finding the pick onto one member in copy right there, and then being able to pull out both mid and bottom inhibitor. Really huge swing inside of this game. Where Golden Guardians, it felt like they hadn't quite taken complete grasp of everything because C9 still had these 3 dragons to bank on, and this feels like a much more commanding position now, where like you have pretty much priority on anything you want to step into. You've been able to pull out both bottom towers, so that means anything that's going to go up the dragon pit for like the next for the next dragon and set up into even like the next dragon after that is all going to go to GGA. So any potential that C9 would have had to try to set themselves up for a soul point feels like it's now been eradicated, at least for the next 2 dragons. So they're hoping that like they can scale up well enough. But again, this gold lead for the side of GGA to overcome that by the time that the 4th dragon comes up, if the game even goes that long, probably still just like insurmountable from the side of C9 Academy.
A miracle position yet again with Fish to be into, but oh my god, they really aggressive onto copy though. Darshan stops that for a couple more seconds as we're seeing how this fight shapes out between the two. Anyway, was coming in. GGA could potentially go in on this, but the cannon barrage will force them away. And they're gonna triple inhib them, Dean. A wave coming in mid, wave coming in bot as well very, very soon. Right now, C9A has to make some sort of stand. They had to get something, but GGA are just walking all over them inside their own base too. As they're going on to one nice hook, and here the Rose Sword has to flash away. There's a Fisher, knocks him away for a little bit longer though. But Surefire's super low. Darshan is low. King is half health, but Surefire is low. Everyone is so low. What more can they do right now? As Darshan falls too, who will be the next target? Okay, they managed to get one back. As Rose Sword is dead. C9A to the back of King survive.
Yeah, there's probably no better way to say it except survive right there. It's like in another of other situations, maybe this turns into something. I will say the Mountain Drake is available. They have numbers advantage. This probably ends up being Mountain Soul in their back pocket, which being down 10,000 gold, especially to a composition with like an Ezreal and a Gangplank, does feel great.
I've seen this before. Deja vu, Dean. I have been to this place before. As Yunbi knocks down 1-2, you just gotta kill him. One more auto, he just dies. The copy as well. Super duper. Oh my god.
Okay.
That lantern saved his life.
I thought they'd be able to make their way into River and that GGA were going to pull off completely, but the health bars were there actually ahead of time. And so right there, GGA closed that door as well. Instead, it is just end up being the base hold from the side of C9 Academy to go a little bit further. This all kind of spurns from, like, look at where you're at. Like, you've got your 2 carries on the back, or like 2 of your carries on the back, and then you've got Ezreal who jumps over the wall, and you've got Braum and Rose Thorn on the front line. Like, guys, where is our damage? Where is everything coming through? Darshan also stalls because of the W, the Zonias, everything like that. Actually buys space for King to get really aggressive. Flashes in without being able to auto-attack. The Zonias stalled out because Prisma wasn't able to be punished. So, again, both sides kind of being able to deny enough time to really, generate anything massive in terms of momentum on one side of the fight or the other. But still, again, it's C9 who ends up coming out at least alive on the other side, but GGA end up winning because they're able to deny Dragon again, as well as take that top inhibitor. So now all 3 inhibitors down for the entirety of C9's base. And
suddenly right now, it's like if we're looking at it, like C9 can only step so far out of base before they have to worry about, just anybody just pushing into them, which, there we go. Like Yunbi's doing right now, he's taking one solid wave. Dragon, they're looking to turn. It's a 4v5 between these two. Have a little bit of vision. There's a TP as well. Yunbi still not coming into them as they're backing off of the Baron. GGA know exactly what they're doing here too. They can just continue to poke back and forth as Unibee's in the base here, Dean. He's right in front of the Nocturne on top of their towers. As there we go, they rise all away, but he at least gets a tower out of it. No, he doesn't.
Yeah.
Okay, never mind.
Like, he bailed on that. I think he could have stayed, but I get the reason. And GMB just like, okay, I have accomplished my goal. I got them to Realm Morph away from the Baron buff. We get to take the Baron buff, and now, like, one of their Nexus towers is down to the critical health at this point. They haven't expanded their gold lead yet. It's still sitting at about that 7,000-8,000 mark just between those two. But we're in a great position for GGA now to use this Baron buff to specifically close out the game. This range advantage, the TF being able to auto-attack towers like crazy, the Gangplank having a bunch of crits, now having the Lord Doms for additional penetration on top of the penetration that already exists from the barrels. This is going to have to be another miracle hold from C9 Academy. At minimum, Jinx is set up to do some really significant damage if they can find it, but at this moment, it's looking very dire from C9 Academy.
Bot inhib up as well, so C9 right now. We'll see if they can possibly stop this. I want you to watch Darshan on the backside. If we can go on, possibly, but back and forth here, they land the ultimate between the two to get on one immediately. Yeah, UMB had no chance in heck of being able to survive between these two teams. Right now, Sternfire might be gone, as well as Rostor. A lot of damage putting on to him. Cloud9 Academy do it twice in a row here, Dean, in front of their base. King, I gotta get with a triple. He stays alive one more time.
They are just playing into this composition from the side of C9, where it's like they don't have this much engage. They lay out their fight right in front of you. They're like, we've got Darshan here, he's going to stand in the front. We've got Isle, who's going to be looking for a hook or something like that. And then you've got Coffee, and you've got Surenfire, and you've got King for damage. And King is just going to be focusing the first person he sees until he gets excited, and he's going to be able to walk through the remainder of the fight. And despite that being very worn on their sleeves, GGA still ends up losing a fight around this bottom. They expand too far, I will say, going into the likes of the inhibitor. They probably should just abandon Yunbi right here after the Zonians ends up going through. Darshan, again, with this W, being able to live for such a long time, buys this space for Jinx, or King, my apologies, who takes a Gangplank barrel, does not matter. Shield Bow's able to keep him up long enough to be able to continue auto-attacking, doing things inside this fight, ends up buying himself a triple kill and winning this for C9. As now, C9's hopes for coming back in this game are very alive. They are now able to, in 1 minute, try to fight. Their bottom inhibitor is at least up, so they don't have to worry about that. If they can somehow get top and mid pushed out enough to come in and compete for what is the Mountain Soul, if they can snag that one away and this Jinx can continue scaling, they at least have a way to get back into this game.
Cloud9 Academy keeping things funky and fresh as they continue to give hope to all of their fans. Try to stay alive in the PG circuit. But Dean, I was gonna say we reached 1-5 territory before, but make that right now 2-5 territory. And that first fight has to be for Cloud9. They have to find a way to come out on top yet again, whether it be through another fantastic hook from Isles, whether it's Surenfire blowing somebody up, or if it's Darshan finding the perfect play onto the back end of Golden Guardians Academy. There are a lot of tools to work with. 15 seconds until the dragon.
C9 basically has one fight left. If they lose that fight, then they don't get another one. If they win, they get another fight. And that's how this works. Until they lose this fight, the game is still within grasp. The second they lose, the game's over. Their base is dead. They have nothing to defend. They've got one Nexus tower. At this point, if all 5 members from GGA just walked in, they just take the base with relative ease. Which is why they can't really step in and unfortunately kind of take this. Is like, again, GGA have done a good job wrestling away kind of shallow vision territory inside of this quadrant. Now they're going to work their way up bottom side. I like this because Niles was setting up this wave, preparing for this, and now maybe C9 can kind of, you know, pigeonhole them together, force them on this inhibitor the way they just had. Maybe Jinx can do some more magic. Maybe King can try to carry another fight around this inhibitor tank that GGA is trying to set up.
Pillar goes out a little bit early too, so should be back up another 10 seconds between, you know, Rostor and then any possible engage too. Should just try to back them away from the inhibitor, as they definitely want this. But how do C9 engage? We saw before that it was just one nice little hook between these two. Cannon Barrage goes down. Alex takes a bunch of damage, but they're perfectly fine. He's a support, and Surefire can just heal up. Flash gold card is immediately comes away from King though, but that is the trigger as they go in. Darshan right up at the front, but he's gone. The inhibitor's gone right now to the gold card on the backside too. Okay. He goes going for a couple more seconds, but copy and stay alive though. Surefire's gone as well. Oh, no, only just the right shot of wave clear away. There's only one turret left, but now that's gone. And now copy, he has the last one standing. Golden Guardians Academy knocking at the base of Cloud9 as the hopes of C9 moving forward are also gone.
Would you look at that? Golden Guardians, they lost out earlier in the tournament. They're able to make this run back as much as possible. They take down C9 Academy, and they have built on their previous split success. They weren't looking great. They were the bottom placed Academy team. They got 8th, 7th in Proving Grounds. Now they are top 6 in Proving Grounds and looking amazing. Again, game by game, the improvement is clearly there. They're understanding what they're meant to do. They're understanding what their identity is looking like, and they are playing to it extravagantly. Love the way that they've been able to kind of play recently.
Consistency was the name of the game for the beginning of the season for Golden Guardians Academy, and through forming their identity, figuring out their play styles, and now with the skirmish heavy type of composition that we see them drafting, they've done magnificently. But like, as we look back at this game, we do have to give big props to C9 for playing their heart out.
That you do. King, especially in the second game, Copy in the first game, a lot of individual members had great performances, individual fights, things like that, but it felt like they could never really get off the ground. It felt like both games, they felt more reactive than like proactive, and I don't like to see that from C9. They oftentimes are a team that I like to see like Copy get out on the map and like have a bunch of impact elsewhere inside of team fights. You like to see Surefighter have a bunch of impact, and this didn't feel like a series where either one of them were like given any agency whatsoever in the earlier stages of the game. And while yeah, eventually like King looked really good on the Jinx, was able to try to pop off in fights. Copy had a couple of really good fights himself, nearly popped off a couple of times. C9, unfortunately, they couldn't kind of make it happen early enough. GGA would walk away in the early game with usually a lead, and then be able to convert in the later stages, which is like what their composition has been designed around. So props to C9 getting this far. They had a rough go of it. Again, they could have very easily fallen out in the first round the way that Team Liquid Academy did in very tragic fashion in Spring Split, but they were willing to and able to actually fight back here to make sure to get back to 7th, 8th at least. And especially against the surging GGA Academy, I don't think you have to be too upset about the way that things turned out. You obviously are disappointed, but you don't have to be like raging right now because this team has been looking fantastic recently.
This play right here, this is what really just did it for me, where I will likely be questioning this to myself as I sleep in bed at night with my birthday hat on because it's my birthday. It's between these two teams, because like that just opened up the entire game right now for GGA 2, and they're able to take all the power back of C9. Like C9 were actually like doing quite well up until that point. We kept saying they had the experience lead, although the goalie wasn't there too, but the fighting too was done really well. And King was nearly at that point where he could have just like 1v5 the entire game, considering how fairly squishy all of GGA were as well. Maz wasn't online yet either, but man, fantastic stuff from Golden Guardians Academy. And we'll be hearing from Rose Thorn as well in just a little bit to find out more about this series.
Yeah, you could actually give quite a bit to that play. It killed them in some respect, only because it felt like C9, they lost the idea of what their composition was doing. It was already tough to play out, but the craziest part about all this is that like somehow when they had the fight set up around, they were able to win in these situations. That's what you just saw on the screen. Hello, Mr. Rosa. How are you doing today?
Hello. Hey, Rosa, welcome. First and foremost, bro, massive congratulations to y'all on the series. Y'all are now top 6, so phenomenal stuff, man. Congratulations.
Thank you.
No worries. But so I'll go ahead and start you off the first couple of questions here, just right off the bat, man. Talking to both Niles and Newbie a little bit ago, there was one key word uttered between you and your staff. It was consistency. Consistency within your play and consistency in your identity as a team. Do you feel as though you achieved that?
Definitely getting more and more consistent as we've been like ramping up through Proving Grounds. I think our inconsistency showed a lot in the previous tournaments in UGP and like our first match against EGA. But yeah, we've been just working on our mid game, especially with being more communicative and being on the same page, and that has all helped us become more consistent.
Now, you guys had you specifically have been on in the last 2 splits. In spring split, you had like a not great academy split into what was a striking above your belt in terms of Proving Grounds performance. And here you've done a similar thing where you were bottom 3 academy. Now you're sitting in 6th, 5th, not looking to stop anytime soon. You guys are absolutely on fire. What is it about Proving Grounds, or what is it about the later stage of the season that's really been a boon for you guys to be able to turn things around?
I think for me personally, in spring, I was just a lot worse as an individual player during the regular season. So it just felt more natural to ramp up as I improved, right? But in summer, we were just not as coordinated, and as you said earlier, like we were just not consistent. So we like threw a lot of games and our leads. So I think, as I said, like we just managed to get together on the same page. Our coaches have been really helping us a lot with that kind of thing. So I think that's why we're able to improve and just win more games now.
I mean, it really shows to you with this series being taken 2-0, which y'all, like y'all moving around the bracket. Though there's one thing I want to ask you about, because I know Rebel and I were genuinely confused in that game. Game 2, when they rise altered down into the dragon, they're looking at Soul Point. What was the call being made for your team? What was happening inside y'all's head?
Yeah, I mean, looking back at it, like we definitely should have just helped me do dragon, because like it takes me like 30 seconds to solo it, but Aiden got like a super insane barrel off, and I knew that we would still be able to win fights as long as we play it properly. So in our head, we're just go on them, and it's like, they're like all panicked because they have no way of getting in besides like doing a rise port. So we were just confident in that fight.
And you guys now have also Wildcard Red on the horizon. That's the next opponent you guys are going to be taking on. And I know you had stepped in from amateur. You were able to kind of be inside of that scene. And this is a team that, like, they've been dominating for quite some time. Does it mean anything specific to you, special to you, to be able to take on one of, like, the more proficient or more winning kind of, like, amateur organizations, to be able to prove yourself to that next level, given just how well you've developed over the last season?
Yeah, for sure. I think Wildcard's obviously, like, the best amateur team right now, since they're the only ones left with the Resolve, but they have a lot of experienced players, even though they're an amateur team, and they play aggressive like Cloud9, so I think it'll be really fun to play against them.
I think so too. It should be a really fun series to watch, though. But as you go throughout here on the bracket roster, our final question for you, Amigo, before I send you off, right? What is one thing that you want people to say about maybe GGA as a whole, or about you as a player?
I just want people to know that we're really good, and as individual players, I have really strong laners, and I'm confident in my own skills as well. And I think the biggest strength that we have is our cohesiveness and putting all of it together. So as we continue playing this tournament, I just want to show that we have the best teamwork too.
Well, I am excited to see it here, man. Thank you very much for coming on and talking to us, and we look forward to seeing what you and GGA can do as you continue throughout PG.
Thank you.
Yeah. Shout out to Rostar here, man. Though, like we said it before, we'll say it again. The team is really coming together as a whole here, Dean. And if I'm really coming together here, like just as a duo too, maybe even friends. Could I say we're friends? What do you think?
No, don't say that.
Okay. Well, that was wonderful. Speaking of which, too, as we do have another best of 3 series coming up next, as GG are able to move on. Like we said before, they'll be facing Wildcard Red next. And the winner of our next series between Resolve and Immortals Academy will go on to face Dig, a fearsome opponent nonetheless, but one we will be excited to see, as to who will be up against them. So, like we already said, we do have that up on deck. But any final thoughts from you, Dean?
No. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. We'll see you all in a little bit.